guys. Welcome on back. Not sure. Oh, here he comes. He's coming. Hi, monster. Yes, you. Hi. Ew. Alrighty, you guys. So, we are back. Yes, he brought a ball. We are back to talk about another episode of It. Welcome to Derry. This is episode 6. I'm just full transparency. I am filming this after watching the 7th episode. I procrastinated. But, it's a very emotionally heavy episode, guys. So just warning for next week. But this episode is titled In the Name of the Father. I think that's a very interesting title for this episode specifically. We learn a lot about Pennywise as a father and his backstory more with Periwinkle. Plus, we see the conflict between Will and Leroy. So this is a pretty father-heavy episode, I would say. It's also a very heavy context episode. Again, a lot of exposition, which I don't necessarily mind because that's basically what the show has been. So I'm all right with it. But it is a lot. So we might breeze on through some of this because while it's important to the story, I don't think it's necessarily thematically super important in every little aspect. But we'll get into it. Plagued by increasingly dark visions, Dick learns the black spot is integral to Charlotte's plan. Meanwhile, Will faces his parents' disapproval for walking into a dangerous situation, and Lily's behavior grows erratic. So yeah, I'll always say time. I'm hoping this won't be a super duper long video. Let's dive right on into it. Welcome to Derry. Episode 6. So we get a bit of a backstory right in the very beginning. We open up on Juniper Hill in 1935. And it's like black and white, a little bit Sinister Kane. Is that Citizen Kane? Is that... Which movie is the black and white one, but there's just red? Sin City? I don't know. I can't remember. Anyways, it's very that. Just black and white. Except the only colors we see are kind of like that orange glow of the deadlights in Pennywise's eyes and the red balloon. It stands out a lot. We see a nurse waking up a child out of bed and leading her down into the basement. I think pretty early on, like, we're pretty much assuming that it's Ingrid Kirsch. Before she became Ingrid Kirsch, she would have been Ingrid Gray, I believe. Maybe she was married by that point. The little girl's name is Mabel, and she's terrified walking down into the furnace with her. We'll later find out, like, more about that. And she asks the little girl, this is where the clown told you to meet him. And Mabel's just terrified, rightfully so. And then they see a red balloon and it floats over to a doorway, and we see Pennywise's hand pop out and grab it. And of course, it cuts to the intro. A smile is something special. Skipping on forward to current with the timeline, 1960s. Will is just kind of like disassociating, drifting off almost, while Leroy's reprimanding him about being down in the sewers. And also blames Polly's death on Will being there, which is not true, but at the same time, who knows? I feel like it would have caused something anyways, so that like one of them would have been hurt, but who knows? Will even says how unfair it is to blame Polly's death on him. Charlotte, she tries to step in, but Leroy is very firm on his stance, like, you weren't there, you don't understand what this thing is. And I think that really, like, shocked Charlotte as well. Like, you can see she's taken aback a bit. And I do think that is an interesting kind of like conversation. Like, if we were to say what a real life parallel is to that, I could see that as being like, parents have ever been in an argument and you're kind of in the center of it, depending on the gender, whichever parent kind of sometimes takes over, you know what I mean? I feel like that's very kind of traditional mindset with parenting, but I do recognize that as like a thing. Like, you weren't down there, oh, Charlotte, you're not a man, you don't understand. That kind of thing. Like, it seems to have a reason to be excluding Charlotte from this conversation that's happening. And then we see the actions that Leroy takes, how this is like a direct kind of like passing down of male trauma. Leroy reveals that it's a shapeshifter to Charlotte, and we see that the division that it creates is splitting them further and further apart. Will tries saying that they know what to do. He just needs to like be with his friends. And Leroy shuts that down. I mean, duh. And demands he does not leave his room for any reason, because the only place he is safe for right now is on the military base. Will stands up for himself and tries to say to Leroy that he has friends who need him and that Leroy would do the same. Well, yes, that's probably true. Maybe. Leroy does say, "You are not me." And ooh, does Will let him have it? He says, "Yeah, I know I'm not you, because I would never let my friends die." And that's when Leroy slaps him across the face. I mean, Charlotte is horrified by what she's seeing. You see the fear in Will's eyes too, but you also see it in Leroy's. Like, he isn't quite sure what exactly took over him in that moment. But Will does say, "It's got you too. It's gone to your head." And I know I talked too soon. I said the Hanlons. What a lovely family. No, but that's it. So like, it makes sense that even this family that we initially thought was so strong, they are, but it gets into those like nooks and crannies and starts, splitting them up. And we see Will riding his bike out of base camp. He's out of there. And that's when we see that around town they are hanging up wanted posters for Hank Grogan. This is drawing in a huge amount of attention from the white population of Derry. And we see how the town basically comes together in hopes of hunting down Hank Grogan. It's basically vigilante justice. I mean, that's what it's promoting. It's a lynch mob. And I'm just going to be honest. It's not necessarily this episode, but the next episode is very heavy. Very. Like, I know it's a scary show and it does focus on trauma a lot, but it's been relatively, like, fun so far. Ooh, I don't know. Just the whole thing with the black spot, like, even reading the book, that scene and the one with Adrian Malone, I don't know, always just like made me feel sick, because they do talk about the black spot in the actual It book, and it's just it's very unsettling, very uncomfortable, and I found myself feeling a lot of anger while watching the 7th episode. So mind you that. Like, yes, it's horrible, gut-wrenching, emotional, but it also made me extremely angry. We see Ronnie looking at one of the wanted posters of her father from the top of the watchtower. Now, they call it something else. I don't know. I'm just going to keep referring it to the watch as the watchtower. Lily is telling the others about how the shard saved her, how it was afraid of the shard. Yeah, this is such an interesting story, like character development for Lily. Oh my god. I think this also, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but there's just been so many theories out there and so much information already given to us about these children's fate. And with Lily, I think it's almost certain she's going to end up in Juniper Hill, like getting lobotomized. But I would have thought it would have been like the system trying to crush her down and shut her up. Maybe that might still be the case, but we start to see Lily really shift in her character. And we know that the shard is responsible for that, but I'm wondering if she'll be able to come back from it. Will asks to see the shard, but Lily insists she is the only one to hold it. It's very much like, my precious. And we see the effect it's having on her already. She's becoming selfish, standoffish, and very argumentative. Lily insists that they all go back to use the shard to defeat it. Some of these kids, we see them being stuck up on stuff. Like with Ronnie, it's, just wanting to protect her dad, clear her dad's name. With Lily, it's going down in those damn sewers. So I don't know, maybe it's their proximity to it that gives them that tunnel vision, maybe. I don't know. After Lily recommends that they do that terrible idea, Ronnie jumps in and is like, are you fucking crazy? She doesn't say that, but essentially says that Lily is the reason they almost died in the first place, just like Susie, Phil, and Teddy. Oh, and it becomes basically like a whose fault is it kind of thing. It was like, well, if you never brought us to the movie theater, yeah, well, if you never came over to my house that day. Like, pointless, useless, really. Rich, bless his soul, tries to get them to stop fighting, but it has its teeth kind of sunken into them already. Ronnie calls Lily crazy and says that they should never let her out of Juniper Hill. Damn. Ronnie storms off, followed by Will. He wants to go comfort her shortly after Lily follows. Not to follow them, though. She's just going. Heading on over to the black spot, we see Dick stumbling on in after being missing for days. And his friends tell him about a get-together the next night as he searches for alcohol in the back. He's thirsty, but only to drown his sorrows, essentially drown the ghosts that are now following him. And he sees dead people around him. He tries to go in the back to sleep, but they tell him there's something he doesn't know about. Switching back over to Ronnie and Will. Ronnie is storming down the street, just venting to Will, essentially, about Lily. They both admit they're just tired and scared. Ronnie gives a very sweet little romantic hug with Will, but right before, I think they would have kissed, but right before that, Charlotte catches them. And she's just like, y'all think you're grown? Calling Will by his full name, William Dubois Hanlon. And she tells Ronnie to get in her car as well. So Charlotte is picking them up, bringing them somewhere, and then back at the black spot, they open a door in the back to show Dick that they are hiding Hank Grogan at their hangout spot. Dick knows just outright this is a terrible idea, and he specifically says you're inviting a whole lot of hurt. Suddenly Ronnie comes in and it's just such an emotional reunion, and you see Dick, he's just like, oh fuck. And Charlotte thanks Halloran as he walks by, but he tells her to leave him out of it. Charlotte's like, oh, okay. And Charlotte asks Will if he wants to talk about what happened that morning. He kind of shyly refuses. She quietly comforts him as we hear Hank in the background comforting Ronnie. But Will still seems really pulled back from the situation, knowing what happens after. There's so much. Oh my gosh. Cut to, we are back at the Watchtower and we get this adorable moment with Marge and Rich. Oh my god. I love the development of their little relationship. And it's one of the reasons I didn't like Stranger Things. I thought season 2 was way too relationshipy on what's supposed to be teenagers. I was like, I don't fucking care about this. This does it enough amount. It's not romantic until it is, but it's not. You know what I mean? They're just sweet. They're just being nice kids. It's not Mike and 11 making out on the bed in front of fucking Hopper. Weird shit. Anyways, in the Watchtower, we see Marge attempting to clean her bandages over her eye, and she gets scared by Rich, who just says he's there to try and get an airplane on Main Street. Watch episode 7 and then get back to me. He offers to help Marge clean her bandages, and she tells him, like, it's really gross. You don't want to do that. But he really doesn't seem to mind. Rich, when he licks his finger to try and get the adhesive tape off and tells her that spit has antiseptic properties, she's just, no, I don't think that's true. He's just like, who knows? Science is always changing and just keeps going. We see she's really insecure of her wound, and Rich just thinks that it's so cool. And I really enjoyed this moment because I think with Marge's character, we've seen her searching for acceptance throughout the entire season so far. And now that she found real acceptance with Rich, seeing her kind of realize that feeling, it was just so sweet. She finally got the acceptance that she was searching for from the patty cakes. While he's helping out, Rich brings up the fight between Lily and Ronnie. They're both like, yeah, that was crazy. And says if this thing isn't done with them, then they are better together than apart. But Marge says she isn't the one that needs convincing. Rich helps her put on a new bandage, and they share a cute moment before he throws the plane, almost making it to Main Street. But instead, the plane flies into a drain. Little, Georgie-esque, but I think also maybe alluding to, what's to come. Cut to, we see how Dick is just trying to survive now that the lockbox has been opened. We see him come to in a very dark, hazy room, drowning his just sorrows, really, in alcohol. And there's a persisting knocking happening. Hanlon comes in, and we see Dick is just in the corner hiding. Leroy tells him they have new orders from Shaw to keep looking for the pillars. And, Dick's just like, the fuck? No. He sees another spirit at this point, just off on the other side of the room. And Leroy asks him what happened down there, and Dick just says, I think we pissed it off. Dick reveals how, when he was little, his shine allowed him to see dead things. His grandmother taught him how to lock those visions in a box in his head, not seeing them since he was 9 until his run-in with it. I thought that was a really interesting timeline of things. This kind of childhood trauma that goes away for a little bit. We don't think about it. We think it doesn't influence our life and whatnot until that kind of early adulthood, where I would say Dick is mid to late 20s, even early 30s. That very kind of crucial moment in time of where you realize just how much impact those things had. I thought that was a really interesting portrayal for that. We see how complicated of a character Dick is in this moment. We see Hanlon conflicted in wanting to protect his family and country, while Halloran basically just wants to protect himself. He doesn't have the same motivations that Leroy does. How the two view their duties very differently. Dick is afraid he can't just put it all back once it's been let out. Calls Hanlon a fucking bootlicker and kicks him out. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of loved that. I was like, 8. And Hanlon threatens to have him arrested, which we do know that that's the only reason why Halloran is in the military, is he got in trouble, and this is how he's going to get his way out of it. But he has to do whatever the military says of him. Later on, we see Leroy at home and enters asking for Charlotte and finds her packing bags. He asks where Will is, and she says, probably with his friends, only people he can trust right now. I'm just going to say it. Charlotte's the best thing about this family. Oh, Will too. He's sweet. But Charlotte's the glue. He tries to console her and pushes back against Will not trusting them. But Charlotte stands strong in what happened earlier. Should have never happened, which duh. Leroy says it wasn't him that did that and apologizes to Charlotte, but she isn't the one he needs to apologize to. She's disappointed in his actions, but he hurt Will. And we see Charlotte acknowledge that, but I do find it interesting that he tries so hard. He says it's all about his family, but even in this moment, he's really only trying to persuade Charlotte. And it basically all reflects on him trying to protect his country. He uses that line a lot, but he couldn't protect his own family. She says, "You put us in a cage with a goddamn monster." And Charlotte just kind of like very blankly, like matter of factly, just like, "Well, fuck you if you try to do anything about it." Reveals that Hank Grogan is hiding at the black spot, saying, and Leroy's like, "And how did he get there, Char?" "I put him there." I love her. She plans to sneak him out of town in the morning and return to Shreveport. Shreveport? I don't know. With Will. Calls him out for trying to make things right, but not with her. With Will, the person that he actually hurt. Cut to, we're in school. And Lily sits at her desk during class holding onto the shard in her lap. This girl, oh my god. And she's having flashbacks of it in the sewers, completely just daydreaming in the middle of class. Lily, brain bridge, need to pay attention in school. She opens her desk to grab her book and sees her pickled dad, once again, stuffed inside as the shard starts to glow. And he says, "You'll die if you try." She holds the shard up, screaming for it to stay away, making everyone just stare at her. I mean, yeah. And after being scolded by the teacher, she storms out. Lunch, we see Marge and Rich grabbing their food and sitting together, talking about where Ronnie has been with her dad. And that Will bring them there later, but they can't tell anyone. They also reveal they both heard voices from the pipes as they brushed their teeth. So, like, they know it's still happening. This reunification of the friend group is really being pushed by Rich and Marge. And Rich says that he's even too afraid to go to the bathroom, so he's been going in bottles. They go down a whole, not cute, but like it's cute. Just their dynamic, their chemistry on screen. Talking about chamber pots to knights and pirates and they just work well together. Rich reveals that he got Marge a gift, and it's an eye patch from his Cuban ancestors. And I really love seeing this side of Marge. She's put that guard down, you know? She's like, "I always wanted to be a pirate." Whoever the fuck said that Rich protected Marge like a knight in shining armor and storing her in a chest like treasure, count your days. Suddenly, though, the patty cakes appear and they ask if Marge is avoiding them. Marge again has to tell people that Lily wasn't the one that attacked her and turns down sitting with them after they called Rich and other people just at their table freaks. And this makes Marge rip off her bandage and scare the patty cakes so bad that one of them just like starts choking. Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, but like kind of deserved it. And Marge ate with that. And then after that, she just like sits there proudly, kind of showing her eye. Later on, we see Will leading Rich and Marge to the black spot to see Ronnie. They're trying to convince her to stay and fight it with them. And I thought it was very interesting before they enter into the actual black spot. They mentioned saying a prayer, and Rich says that the last time they did that, his dead Tio almost killed them. So Will says, "Okay, so don't pray." However, right before Marge walks in, she does the kind of like classic, I don't know which specific prayer it is, but you know, she makes the gesture. Could Marge still have been the one to doom them? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Inside, we see live music and drinking, and Will leads them to the back where Ronnie is hiding in a room with her father. Cutting again over to Lily as we see her riding her bike down the street, pulling up to Mrs. Kirsch's house. And this time we notice the neighbor staring at Lily uncomfortably. Like he watches her ride by and park her bike or just kind of like set it down. You know, the symbol that she's in a rush. Then you see him still staring at her in the background, and she turns and looks at him, and he's just like, It's so creepy. And as no one answers, Lily walks in and you see the house. Like it I might be bugging on this, but everything just seems so off. Like the house is leaning a bit, things don't line up quite correctly. It's like the facade of this thing is kind of skewing or distorting a bit. There's just kind of something uncanny about it. Lily opens the door, calling out, but no one is there, and she finds herself led upstairs by music to a room filled with Periwinkle's memories. Photos of her and her dad. We also see the pink cup from It Part 2 when Mrs. Kirsch is older and is visited by Beverly Marsh, adult Beverly. And as Lily sees photos of Ingrid's dad, the music like shifts. It's not him in makeup, but like, fuck, he's such a creepy looking guy. Mrs. Kirsch walks up the stairs to find her. Lily tells her how they went to the tunnels, saying they didn't have a choice. I mean, Mrs. Kirsch is just like, oh, Lily, I told you not to. She turned into Moira Rose. And as Lily hugs Ingrid, she sees a photo of her father as Pennywise and her as Periwinkle in the back. And fear just sets in. Ingrid is like, oh, you're safe, darling, you're safe. And asks her if Lily has seen him. I mean, you see the realization on Ingrid's face when she realizes Lily has seen that clown. Gleefully says that Lily did it. She brought him back. And seeing Periwinkle's costume makes Lily realize that it was actually Ingrid in the cemetery, chasing them, and she's trying to bring back her father who was quote unquote taken from her. Now, I thought this was like we were going to get a whole backstory that like Pennywise was like framed and kind of vigilante justice killed by the townsfolk of Derry as well. Not the case. But I thought it was interesting. She believes it is her dad. Once the carnival left, she stayed in Derry, having felt drawn to it. Now, I like that Mrs. Kirsch actually is like a real person. And yes, she's being used by it. But I think while, yes, she does terrible things, she leads people to their death, she's doing it in the name of like just wanting to see her dad again. And it adds complexity to her character, and I appreciate her for that. And I think even after this newer episode too is like, honey, you realize a little too late. But I still feel bad for her, like that longing for just her father back, you know? But then we flash back to the black and white sequence, and we see what's gonna go down with little poor frickin' Mabel. As Mrs. Kirsch works in Juniper Hill's children ward, we overhear a patient telling her doctor about Pennywise. Later that night, the same little girl is led to the basement by Ingrid in hopes of seeing her father again. And she doesn't even like register that this is a threat, you know? And she's just a girl that misses her father who never got to say goodbye to him. And her missing her dad and it using this to have her bring kids to the basement, essentially. And her brain just kind of like, I don't know, didn't allow her to recognize what it really was. We'll get into it. When he greets Mabel and hands her the balloon, he looks up at Ingrid, realizing that she isn't afraid of him, and laughs, knowing how he can use this. However, he does lunge at Mabel. The two try to flee, but Mabel gets cut off and slowly stalked by Pennywise. This is such a creepy fucking scene. Oh my god. Until he, of course, eats her. And Ingrid knows that Mabel is dead. There's blood coming underneath the door, but she still longs for her father so much, opening the door to him after it fully takes the form of her father. And then cut back to Ingrid and Lily. She really believes that it is her dad and feeling whole again. And she says every time he would return, the shadow would steal my father away. I thought, was she mentioning the turtle? Because, like, think about it. If a turtle is swimming through space above us, would we not just conceive it as a shadow, right? Like, kind of going over. So, could it be that like this 27-year span is when Murtan, the turtle, isn't there protecting? I don't know, or the 27 years is when it is protected. Yeah, there's so much in the world of it. We're going to get so many good seasons. Ingrid did what she had to do to see her father again each time, wanting to try and break him free from this thing that held him. Ingrid promises that she would never hurt Lily, but Lily's friends don't seem to have that same kind of protection. And Ingrid says if Lily could see her father again, wouldn't she do everything she could to make it happen? I really don't think Lily had a good relationship with her dad. Yeah, I really, really don't. Her dad seems to be the source of the trauma, and yes, his death as well, but it seems like he too directly is a part of that. Lily says her father is dead, and Ingrid replies, "You know what they say about Derry, dear? No one who dies here ever really dies." And she invites Lily to come with her that night, but Lily slices Ingrid's hand and flees on her bike, screaming and crying. And I thought the bloody handprint on her back almost looked like someone like flipping off. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's a stretch, but it just looked interesting, I would say. Later, at the black spot, Marge is trying to convince Ronnie that they all need to be together to go after it again. But Ronnie says no, saying she isn't leaving her father again. Will goes in to try to talk with Ronnie and Hank. Marge and Rich hang around the black spot watching adults drink and dance. Will tries explaining the situation in the sewers to Hank, trying his best to just convince them that they can stop it. I don't know as though that's true. Hank says she isn't going anywhere, but he gets it and starts having a really open kind of heart-to-heart conversation with Will about how both him and Will clearly care about Ronnie and her safety. And while it's clear it's obviously a uncomfortable conversation for the kids, it's so sweet. And Hank is just such a great father. Might not be the best person. I don't know. I think this whole debacle, while he is entirely innocent, it's just very interesting how his character has kind of become a little bit muddied up just by the situation. But he's such an incredible dad. We saw that in the beginning and we still see that. And Hank asks what Will's favorite movie is. However, at a bar in town, we see a group of men. And is one of them Bill Skarsgård? There's one like extra. I don't know if so he has many lines. It looks like Bill Skarsgård wearing some kind of prosthetic. I don't know. And they're talking about going into the sewers to try and hunt down Hank. Wish they would have fucking done that. But Bowers walks in saying a woman called in a tip. Ingrid, yeah, basically saying, yep, where he's hiding, but says that he can't arrest him because he's been let go from being sheriff, but tells everyone else so that they can form a lynch mob against him. Skipping back to, again, we see Halloran just completely disoriented, coming out of a back room into the lively black spot. Seems to have a really unsettling feeling going on. We see Rich and Marge go to the bar and ask for Cokes, but they get handed a special drink. He calls it a Air Force Coke, I believe. Yeah. And they say it tastes funny, but they're told that, oh, that's the taste of freedom. And Rich says, freedom tastes weird. And I thought that was very interesting. Like, much like that isn't actual Coke, what we are seeing all of these characters experiencing right now, the very existence of the black box, is because it's not real freedom. Much like an Air Force Coke is not just Coke, this freedom is not really freedom. Back to Will and Hank, he tells him that he really enjoyed the War of the Worlds movie, which does please Hank. He's like, that's a good one. Hank says that if anything were to happen to him, he's happy someone with his character is looking out for his daughter. Love Hank. Will says that nothing will happen to him or Ronnie on his watch. But I think that even Hank knows Will doesn't have that power. We see Marge getting affected by the alcohol slightly as Will comes out saying it was no use, that Ronnie won't budge. I've seen some comparisons to like how portrayal of drug and alcohol use with minors, it's a little similar to like Stand By Me. Okay, I'll hear you out there. However, Stand By Me is such a special like time capsule of a period of time where you could have 14-year-olds smoking multiple like packs of cigarettes a day on screen and it wasn't an issue. I'm not saying it's right, but like to try to emulate that feels weird in my opinion. But I do think with the Air Force Coke, that sense of like false freedom, I do think that that played like more of a allegorical, you know? I don't know. A man approaches Rich, seeing that he has drumsticks in his back pocket, asking him if he can play. Marge encourages him and he joins the band. They're really setting those fucking hooks. Marge loving Air Force Coke. She's just like, I love it. And we see Marge falling in love. However, back with Ingrid, we see her don her periwinkle costume, covering her bloodied bandaged hand, hoping her father will see her one last time. I know she's doing terrible things, but like, I still feel for her. And like, she hasn't seen her father since she was a little girl. She just... I can't fault her for that. I can fault her for killing kids, but she's just being manipulated by it. Cut back to the black spot. We see a couple talking and enjoying the quiet, and all of a sudden, a gang of cars pull up, shining their headlights at them, and a mob of white Derry townsfolk come out wearing masks and carrying shotguns. When I tell you, just seeing those headlights pull up made my fucking stomach drop. Ugh. I hate the implication of it. It's so visceral. It's very graphic. Like I said, I have seen the newest episode, and it was hard. It's hard. I don't like just all that. I don't. And like I said, it filled me with a lot of anger, too. So... we'll get into that next week, guys. Go watch the new episode. Don't do it at work. Don't do it. Just don't do it until you have I would say a solid hour for the show and then an hour after to recover. I needed a minute after I watched it. I was like, oh my God. And the thing is, every season's going to be like that. It's going to get so exhausting. But I want to know your thoughts, guys. I know this was a very exposition heavy episode again. I know. I promise the next one isn't, though. It's going to be very rough. It's going to be, just a lot. So prepare yourselves for that. But thank you so much for tuning on in. Hope everyone enjoyed our little recap. And like I said, check out episode 7, right? Yeah. Episode 7. I believe there's only like 1 or 2 more episodes. I think there's only like 1 more, right? There's 8 or 9. I'm not sure on that, but we're getting down to it. It's really ramping up. And the emotional weight of these episodes is going to be a lot too. So, but thank you so much, you guys. Let me know what you thought about the episode. Like and subscribe, all that. Goobert somewhere. Goobadoo. Would you like to come and say goodbye? Goobert? He ain't coming. He must be passed out somewhere. Thank you guys so much. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.